Thanks for watching live or listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Social. My name is Michael Wright, and I am delighted to have Liz Webb on this show here. Today, we are talking about supporting colleagues during tough times. An important topic, I feel, for myself and for Liz personally. We're just talking about it off air, how important it is for us. And I hope it's going to be really, really important for you all too. Liz, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm absolutely splendid. It is a glorious, glorious day here in Devon. The sun is out, which only means one thing, that it's going to be beach later. So after we have this wonderful, wonderful chat, I'm probably going to get my wetsuit on and head down to one of the beaches and have a nice dip, shall we say.
What a way to spend a Saturday. That sounds amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Saturday morning. And more importantly, I hope that we're all enjoying our much deserved summer break. I really hope that we're all in the position where we absolutely switch off. We're not going to focus anything to do with work, and you are focused and you are instead prioritizing on the most important thing for the holidays, which is yourselves. So really, really hope you're doing well today. So to give you an idea about what we're going to be talking about today, supporting colleagues during tough times, we're going to be raising the issues about mental health and well-being within our workplace in UK education. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about when colleagues are enduring those modes of crisis, so the tough times. So yes, there's plenty of things that exist about mental health, well-being, looking after oneself, which is great. But what happens when you're in that position where you are during tough times? So I hope this is going to be of extreme benefit to everyone. Liz is an absolute expert on this and really passionate and such a big advocate for this one, and dedicates a lot of her time and her energies in the workplace to this one. So it'll be a really, really, really wonderful show. Just a background about Liz. She joined the profession as an English teacher in 2005, working in state-maintained schools and academies across Hampshire and Surrey for 20 years. She has been both a second and a head of department, so well positioned to be experiencing and working with colleagues who need that support, as well as an ETC and PGCE mentor. So in those early years, it's very, very important that you obviously establish that. And she's just completed training as a responsive coach, as well as her first year as a primary school governor. Since returning to work after maternity leave in May 2020, her focus on well-being shifted dramatically. While she's always been keen to advocate and look out for others, she realized that staff well-being needed a much more conscious and proactive approach to addressing the low morale, and just sought to kind of put together a well-being community to support and, more importantly, reward her fellow colleagues. She's excited to be here today, and she's really, really excited to speak about how important it is to support colleagues during these tough times, and more specifically during these vulnerable periods. Liz, did I do a good enough intro for you? Did I put you on?
I feel like that makes me sound a lot better than I actually am. So thanks.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So we'll be focusing on a few topics. As always with the Saturday socials, we will deviate and we'll go off tangent where we need to. But really, we're talking about why it's important to talk about supporting colleagues during tough times in education. We'll talk about how that really could relate to the recruitment and retention crisis, just more in an anecdotal position. We'll talk about some of the aspects which can, I would say, contribute to the build up to, and perhaps also affect people during those tough times in relation to our budget cuts, the subject buy-in, perhaps the school culture as well. We'll talk about some of the aspects of societal pressure, parental pressure, maybe the pressure that we educators put ourselves under in terms of being the teacher or being the person in the classroom which is meant to be the figure. And we'll also talk about the priorities and values of this one. And also we're slipping a few do's and don'ts as well, because one thing I noticed, I don't know about you, Liz, but I've had in the past colleagues who have felt they have supported, or they feel like I'm doing the right thing, but actually it exacerbates the situation a little bit worse. So maybe today's conversation is not necessarily to wag a finger at everyone saying naughty, you should have done this, but it hopefully will give a perspective of those who are looking to support their colleagues if they are going through a tough time. Maybe just give them a perspective how they can talk to them in a way which helps really. So first things first, spotting the signs, the early interventions. So from your experience, Liz, when you're noticing a colleague who you've been kind of working with them a couple of weeks and you're noticing there's a gradual decline, from your experience, what does the early signs of someone going into times look like? What do you look for?
I think we seem to separate our colleagues from the students that we care for, but I think a lot of the symptoms of when we are concerned about student well-being we see in our colleagues as well. So people who withdraw, people who go very quiet, people who don't seem to come out of their classrooms very much, people who not when you pass them in the corridor, which often is the very limit of the social interaction we have in a day, because we're so busy all the time and everyone's rushing somewhere else, a change somehow in their personality a little bit, that sometimes the signs are really, really subtle. They don't have to be obvious. People don't have to be crying, people don't have to be, actually, if we are at the stage where they're crying and they're banging their head against a wall and whatever, we're too late. So it's the small things. But I think what we're best placed to do is just check in with each other. Like, that's the simplest thing to do, and most of the time people probably are okay. The problem with being British, I think, is that we often say we're okay when we're not okay. So you're right, yeah, I'm all right. And maybe you're not. But sometimes if you just check in regularly, and it's not a false thing, it's just part of your culture and it's part of something that you do for each other, you can pick up on it. You can see if someone's, sometimes it's just in a state of somebody's desk. Sometimes you can see they're overwhelmed and you want to try and help. And when you're a mentor as well, when you have regular meetings with your early career teachers, it should form part of your discussion. And again, I think it's got to be a cultural thing, because you have to create a culture where if you are overwhelmed, you don't feel judged to say, actually, no, I can't cope. And that's fine, because we all have moments like that. And I think I've been guilty of this. I say I'm fine sometimes when I'm not fine, because I don't want to admit failure. It's like not wanting to send a student out of your class because you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm a terrible teacher. Well, no, actually, for the benefit of everybody else in that classroom, that child does have to go. That's not a failure on your part. That's thinking about the 29 other students who need to learn. And for your own mental health, you need to be able to say, actually, yeah, I'm struggling, and have someone go, let me help you. Not, why are you struggling? Have you been procrastinating? Have you not been keeping on top of things? Because that doesn't help. So it is cultural, I think, but you can foster that. I really believe you can, and I think I don't think it necessarily has to come from the top. I think you can lead by example. Just by being a teacher. I hate that phrase, but I think it's possible.
It is, and it's it's that, I guess I've heard that often teachers are our own worst enemy, because, or at least those who want to clickbait or gaslight those going, well, you're making it hard for yourself because you're doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, great. Well, spend a week in my classroom and then tell me whether or not I'm doing those things. But at the same time, I guess it's the performer in us, because, I think teaching is a performative art. And, if you're performing in front of 30, 35 people on a regular, you've got 30, 35 people eyes on you. So there's a certain pressure that I need to, in this case, I need to teach, I need to educate. So I think a lot of the pressure, there's some pressure that comes from internal, that you're thinking, oh, I can't manage this situation. I should be, because I'm the teacher in this room. So, oh gosh, if I go to speak to so-and-so, then, this is the third time in 2 weeks, then they must think, oh gosh, there's a problem. Another thing that I think we need to address as well is the culture of capability. And you mentioned culture, and a safe, nurturing environment where, we can ask for help is done. So where you go, if I ask, my colleague for help, is this gonna be a bit of a red flag, or are they gonna come to me in my weekly chats and whatever, it's saying, well, actually, this is the third time you've sent, little Jimmy out of the classroom. Is there anything, and that's where I believe the seeds grow in terms of our well-being, and hopefully not mental health declines, because then you go, right, well, they're putting the doubt in my mind, so it must be me, because they're not believing me and they're not looking at this. And so you're quite right. It's the way we talk to one another, and I think also the positions are quite important as well, which leads me on to senior leadership team. I have great empathy for what they do. I really, really do, because senior leaders get it from everywhere, don't they? They get it from governors, they get it from parents, and then they get it from the teachers and the students. So almost like you get this, they're just, I get it. It's an incredibly difficult job. What can we do then as normal teachers, so we say, what could we possibly do to support our senior leader colleagues? So maybe we will go down the hall and we can see our deputy head, buried down, kind of walking straight down in that. What can we do to kind of reach out to him to say, hey, look, I know you're my line manager, but actually, is there anything I can do for you?
I think being friendly, just asking how are you, but sometimes in that genuine way, and following up and making sure that it's a genuine inquiry as well, because obviously you can pass people and you can say, oh, you're all right, and you're in a hurry or whatever, but sometimes you can say, are you okay? How are you? And again, it's the same thing that we have with the students. There are some students that you teach and they come into your classroom and you say, morning, how are you? And then you go, are you okay? And they look at you and you're like, you're not okay. Okay, wait here for a second. Let me get everyone else underway. We'll have a chat. And you can do that with adults. It doesn't just apply to the students. And I think you can do that with your superiors. They don't have to be this force field of people that are untouchable. I think it's healthy for us to be able to say, no, are you really okay? Or if because they tend to have much like we have our teacher besties, they often have someone else on the team as well, or someone who they get along with. If you go and approach someone that they are quite close to and say, look, I saw them earlier, I'm not sure if they're okay. Can you just check in on them? Because they might be better placed to do that. And because it's all about knowing the dynamic, I think, of the staff, and that emotional intuition and intelligence, and using that to your advantage. And I do think sometimes SLT can feel like it's them and us, and they're a different group of people. But I think that varies from school to school anyway. And I think the newer you are in the profession, perhaps the more distant they seem. But when you're experienced and when you've been in the game for 20 years like me, it's a little bit like, I'll ask. It's fine. I'm part of the furniture. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what can go wrong with a caring question? Like, what's going to happen to you if you ask a caring question? Nothing. No one can criticize you for caring. What's to be lost? Nothing. So it's worth it. It's worth us doing it for each other, no matter who the people are. And we might not be able to take on a responsibility. We might not be able to meet with a parent. We might not be able to go to that governor meeting. We might not be able to do any of those things. But sometimes just listening, sometimes being able to be that person who's the sounding board, or just has an open door, or even if they don't want to talk, then just saying, if you're having a rough time, we can have a chat. It's fine. And just offering can be a weight lifted.
Yeah, offering and the feeling of safety and security. So the trust. I mean, you mentioned trust quite a lot, and I think that's the big thing to take away in terms of the spotting the early signs. Is you look, you observe, and then if there is the trust that has been built up over time, then you can go to that person. Hey, look, let's have a cup of coffee. How's it all going? And if they feel confident enough to open up, great. But then, like you said, it's almost like if they do open up, do I have the headspace and do I have the ability to accept this? Because they might go, oh, well, this has happened. And then you go, oh, wow, that's pretty heavy. But at the same time, if someone has confided in you and, I always think I always feel quite honored when someone comes in and actually opens up to me because they trust me enough. So in that way, I kind of go, right, well, I'm going to shelve as much as I can because this person right now needs my attention. So you're quite right. Trust in these early instances for early intervention is important. So your role as a PGCE, ETC mentor, when I was a PGCE student, we had a buddy system, we had a mentor system. In my first school, we had the first year was the yearly check-ins, the weekly check-ins. How effective have they been for you as a mentor in regards to supporting those new teachers with their mental health and well-being? Or how important has it been? If you have any examples of students, teachers, trainers who have had crisis, where they actually are in a moment where they're like, I'm not good, this is...
I actually haven't had, I haven't had crisis moment, but I've had pre-crisis moment to intervene with. But I think that's the important thing. We were talking off air about that early intervention and how important it is to get there before we get to the crisis moment. And I think by having the weekly meetings, by having the weekly check-ins, by having that culture, I mean, I'm talking about my own experience as a mentor. I've been very lucky with the people that I've mentored. They've been very open to building a positive relationship, and so therefore you kind of lay that groundwork at the beginning, that relationship of trust that my ECT mentor, my ECT that I'm mentoring next year, she's come in, we've had chats, I've laid the foundations, and I've been very clear to her about the fact that if you are struggling, you tell me, because I want to support you. There will be no judgment. It's not going to affect the outcomes. Actually, you telling me means that I can help you. And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen right at the very beginning. And they need to feel safe. They need to feel that, if they are struggling with behaviour in a class, if they can't keep on top of the marking, if they haven't got good work-life balance, they need to know that you're going to, not all heroes wear capes, swoop in and just be like, right, how can I help you? Let's work on this together. So it's not an individual battle. I think teaching is very isolating because, unlike in an office environment where you're often quite close to other people, even for me as a member of a big department, you're still, for 45 minutes at a time, sometimes an hour and a half at a time, sometimes all day, you don't see another grown-up. Sometimes it's you for sort of 6 hours. And that can be so isolating. And I think just creating an environment where someone can come to you with they might only have 5 minutes, but they just put their head in your classroom and go, oh my gosh, I've just had the worst time with year 9. I don't know what to do. This happened, this happened, this happened. What do I do? Is this parent going to complain? And it's just like, right, sit down, let's have a chat. We'll sort it. Don't worry, there are very few things that happen in a school that cannot be sorted. We can sort it. Don't worry about it. And trying to instill that idea really early on. So it's, safe zone. It's got to be a zone of safety in order for someone to feel like they can come to you and feel like you are going to help them.
That's spot on. That's absolutely. I love how you phrased that, and there's so much for hopefully people listening. There's so much we can take away from that. A question that popped into my mind: how often would you personally support someone? So let's say someone is going through crisis. They're going through a really tough time. You've had the initial conversation.
Yeah.
In your thinking of support, like how often would you go in and check with them? Would it be a everyday thing, every couple of days? Would it be initially, like, I say it because some people have done this, would it be an email? Would it be, that? So in your personal style, someone is coming, what would be your thinking of, right, this person needs support? How would you go in and show that support over time?
I think it's totally dependent on the individual, because say, you go in every day, that can become quite overwhelming. If someone, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? That can become quite intense. But some people alternatively need that. I think it totally depends on where they are on the kind of that spectrum of crisis, if you like, what they need, what the issue is with as well. So say, for example, the thing that's been the turning point has been a particular class that they've just broken down over. Going in and checking in about that class whenever they see them. So they might see them weekly, they might see them 4 times a week, just kind of checking in and going, right, how did it go today? Was it better? What can we change? I think it's got to be a case-by-case basis. It's got to be on the basis of the person, the situation, the issues, so that you can best support. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. And again, like we do with the students, it's the same principle. You can't, what works with one student isn't going to work with another one. So you just have to know your person that you're helping, and what works best for that. And you can even ask them. You can say, look, I'll check in with you before Friday. Just let me know. You can come and see me any point before then if you want to, but I'll come back and we'll have a chat and we'll just see how you are. But setting up that expectation and saying, I haven't forgotten about you, like that you haven't fallen off my radar. I'm there. If you want me to come in sooner, that's absolutely fine. But it's just so that they know, because in teaching it's busy and it is easy to forget things, and you can become quite self-absorbed, for want of a better phrase, because you are dealing with your own problems as well. They don't go away, but at the same time you have to keep it on your radar. If you're going to help somebody, it's not just that one time. It's got to be a consistent thing.
Yeah, I mean, that will lead nicely into the do's and don'ts. But whilst you're talking about it, I think that's incredibly great advice there. And if my personal style is, then you start the initial conversation, you have a chat, you establish with the person however much they want to share what's going on. But then it's almost like not a full stop conversation, it's a comma, because then you go, well, this person has shared this, but actually, from my experience, it might just be the tip of the iceberg, and they're just sharing a little bit because, again, from my experience, if I go in, what's the problem? It's all out. It's like everything's out. It's like, whoa. So in my mind, I'm going, well, I'm going to give you just a little tiny bits here and there. And you're quite right. It's the follow-up. I normally, after a chat, have a few emails to kind of say, you're not off my radar, but I'm also going to let you know with these emails, if you need me, I'm here. Or conversely, just say, look, how do you want to play this? I'm happy just to come to you. If you want me to come to you, because it helps you, rather than you going to me, because I think when people are in crisis and, where they are suffering, they're in the midst of full-blown crisis, I think the energy levels just zap. You're just absolutely gone. Confidence is at low. The last thing you want to do is traipse through the school and walk to someone, because it's almost like I'm walking to you. I don't have the energy, the confidence. I'm quite vulnerable. I'd rather you just come to me.
And you
If that's
also
all right. And
don't want to cross over with somebody else necessarily either, who, you know, because that sometimes can be the trigger point, can't it? It's like, if I speak to one more person, if one more thing happens, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I think you do go into a survival mode, don't you? When you're at a really low point, you're just like, I just have to get to the end of the day. I have to get to the end of the day, and then I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to sit in silence for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to drive. Because there is something about teaching. There is a survival element to it, and it's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't been in the profession. I think that crisis mode when you're a teacher is fight or flight, I think. And if you, like you say, if you have to traipse across the school to find someone when you're in that fight or flight mode, it's like, this is not safe. This is not a safe thing to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cry. I'm going to, you know, shut myself in a bathroom and not come out. Like, what am I going to do? And yeah, trying to stop someone from feeling like that, if you can. Can't always, but if you can, that's what you want to try and do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's brilliant advice for any young new teachers starting out here in terms of the profession. That you quite, like you said, we can't all hold the responsibilities all at once, and when you're new to the profession, those who are experienced have been there, done that, and they get it. But most importantly, like you said, they're there to help. Your job as a mentor is to usher in the new teachers coming in, making sure that they've got the framework and the foundations to build upon, hopefully, a happy and successful career. So you're not coming into the profession already with this mindset that people are going to get out to get you. If anything, where you're an ETC, you know, people are looking at you as the teacher, going, you are the future. You're going to be the people that are going to hopefully take over from us, and you're going to do the same thing. So there is that lovely support network. So anyone out there looking into teaching and looking at September as their first post, it's like, you're going to have people that are going to support you there. That's 100%. That's, you know, what we do, really, isn't it? So
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, please carry on.
I was just going to say, like, 2 key things when you start the profession is, number one, ask. Always ask. Like, ask for help, ask a question, you know, don't suffer in silence. That's key. And, you know, find your people, like, really early on. I think part of the survival in teaching is, you know, finding your support network. You need at least one person. Again, like with the kids, we say, find a trusted adult. Have at least one adult in the school who, you know, if you have a problem, you can go to. We need the same. Find your people, and let them be your support network as well. We all need it. 20 years in, 30 years in, 1 year in. You need someone whose classroom you can go into and go, oh my gosh, I'm having such a bad day.
Just as long as they're not teaching, that's something. If they're kind of got
Timing's key.
If they got the year 12s and A level there, you go, oh, I just got to talk to you now. It's like, do you want to wait? I've just kind of, we're kind of working on this. Yeah, just give me 2 minutes, would you? You know? I just wanted to just take a moment to promote our TTR newsletter. It's a wonderful newsletter, and if you haven't subscribed, you should. It's absolutely amazing. It's called Sound Bites and Insights, and it's delivered to 10,000 educators a week. It contains a curtailed section of 4 standout TTR shows from the week, exclusive discounts and exclusive offers from our sponsors. Sign up on our website, ttrradio.org/newsletter. So, creating a culture of trust, which then builds a support network within the school. So I read this on, I've forgotten where the book was, but it was one of these Warren Buffett type successful entrepreneurs who, you know, have amassed billions or have gone into companies and they've been employed to essentially, you know, please turn around our profits. One maxim that I live by, and ever since I found out, is amazing: culture eats strategy for breakfast. And ever since I read that, it's just been something that I live by when I work in education: culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we'll start with creating that culture and the culture of trust. This is more to do with, like you say, the safety. So one's psychological safety in staff rooms, meetings, anywhere where they go into at any moment, and in school, they have a feeling of safety and security. Even if it's quite tough conversations, there is that feeling that I'm being supported. Confidentiality, we'll factor that in as well. So talking candidly, but also trusting someone to say, do you know what? This won't go between anyone else. It's just me. Encouraging vulnerability, but also encouraging vulnerability in leadership as well. I think that's an important aspect too. And also celebrating the effort, not just the outcomes. So if we're talking about not putting people in that moment of crisis, and we do early intervention and we're proactive, in your experience, what's the best way to create a culture of trust?
One of the things that you just said, I really liked, and that idea of vulnerability in leadership. I think the more human your senior leadership team are, the more you feel like you can be human. So again, that's that culture idea, isn't it? That not creating that idea of necessarily, I'm a senior leader, so therefore I'm the best at this, and what I say goes, and so therefore if I say this is the thing, this is the thing. I think that can breed resentment, and I think that can breed a bit of a divide. I think not forgetting what it's like to be on the front line is really, really important. But I also don't think it is completely the responsibility of SLT to foster that culture of well-being. I think a lot of schools now are moving to having, I think you mentioned earlier, like directors of well-being and things like that. I think sometimes that's become a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like something that we're doing, it's a tick box activity, but it's not actually leading to anything. And I find that quite frustrating, because if you can use it as a buzzword all you like, but you've actually got to follow it up with things that are in place. I think the key thing is making sure your staff feel valued. I think knowing your value and knowing your worth is really, really important. And when you don't feel that, or when you are struggling, you don't have that it's called something, isn't it? Something capital. I can't think what it's called. But I'm going to call it emotional capital because I can't remember the term, perimenopausal brain. But having that you can call in on. So it's like, okay, I'm having a bad day, but I know that I'm valued. I know my worth. I know that having those little reminders and those signposts. Whereas I think if you work in an environment where, again, culture eats strategy for breakfast, if you don't have that culture where you feel like that, actually your down moments can accelerate quite quickly because you haven't got anything to fall back on, to remember. And so I think well-being isn't just about support necessarily. It's about that proactive, you are great, thank you for what you do. And that doesn't have to be, nobody has to be bought a bottle of wine, nobody has to like have balloons in their classroom or banners or big fuss or anything like that.
It helps though if that was that would be. I'm not. I don't know why. I'm just talking for a friend here, but I think it'd be nice if there was a bottle of Dom Perignon there, or like a balloon saying you're amazing. Yeah.
Obviously, if someone's going to do that, I'm not going to say no. But funding being the way that it is, I get it. But it can, just a genuine thank you can make such a difference, and not, I really don't like the perfunctory thank yous. It really winds me up. It's like you're doing this because you need to be seen to be doing it, not because you're genuinely grateful for something that I've done. And there is a difference, and you feel the difference so much. And I used to have a head teacher when I first entered the profession who used to write little handwritten thank yous. They weren't public. They were just little handwritten thank yous that were put in your pigeonhole. And you thought, you know what, you've taken the time to write that, which you didn't have to do. You're a busy person. That wasn't public. That's literally just between you and me. I'm the only person who knows that you've done that. That's genuine. That is a genuine gesture, and things like that make such a difference. And I'm not, again, when you're a head teacher in particular, I work in a huge school now. There's 1,500 on roll. It's absolutely enormous, and I'm not expecting the head teacher to handwrite notes to everybody. You can't do that, but you can when you pass someone in a corridor. You can say, "Oh, thank you so much for doing that." When they see you in that moment and they remember it, that's genuine. That's a genuine thank you. But in briefing publicly, it's done, oh, thank you to so-and-so for doing that. I know you mean well, but it's quite empty as a gesture. It's the genuine thing, and that makes you feel valued. And little things like, I've got my pet peeve is the phrase directed time. I absolutely hate it. I hate it being thrown at you all the time. Oh, but directed time. It's like, come on, I work twice as many hours as my directed time. Just because I've got a doctor's appointment at that time, because that's literally the only time I could get it, don't go, oh, it's in directed time. Just say, okay, no problem. Off you go. It's little, they're tiny things. They don't cost anything. They're just, but it makes you feel like you're important. Whereas when someone throws the phrase directed time at you, you're just saying, oh, right, so you haven't noticed all those extra hours that I do. You don't recognize the fact that I make that up over and over again. And the phrase clawing back, we're clawing back that time. You've clawed back your time. You've had your pound of flesh. please, just give me this 10 minutes, please. And it's that's the thing. I don't know, but like you say, bottle of champagne would be lovely. But genuine, well meant things like that go such a long way. And we can do that for each other. It doesn't have to come from SLT. You can do that. I try to, if someone does something for me, if I've sent someone an email and said, oh, please, can you give me that information? The next time I see them, I go, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sending me that. I'm really, really grateful. That just made such a difference to my life, or whatever. It's tiny, but it's important.
It is. And you know what? You've highlighted a few things that I have in my notes for the chat. First thing, you talk about the insincerity of the thank yous and everything. I think the term is toxic positivity.
I hate that.
Everything is categorized, and it is. It's you. Do you know what? Teachers are empaths. That's why we do what we do, and that's why we're successful. We're empaths. We absolutely tune into people. We tune into everyone and anyone. We can talk to anyone and everyone because we have to. We got to be, detectives in terms of finding things out. We've got to build those trusts, those networks. So when you have that insincerity of, and congratulations to Liz for doing this in yesterday's lesson, and you read it and you go, oh, okay. All right. But that, not mentioning it in the staff briefing, but just going down the corridor. Oh, hey, Liz, sorry, just before you go, I know you're busy with period one. Thank you so much for that lesson, by the way. And you walk, you're going, oh, I'm noticed. And it's sincere, and it doesn't take, in fact, anything, it takes less time and effort to do that rather than a well done too. Because if you think about it, when you're writing your notes, for leaders out there, you're writing notes, you're planning what you're talking about, briefing, and then we're going to talk about this. But if it is impromptu and it is before you go, just want to say thank you so much. It takes a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
It's personal. It's not necessarily showy, but it does make a huge difference.
Well, you just pull your shoulders back and you hold your head a little higher, like it's a little boost, isn't it? I used to have a poster on my wall that said, a smile costs nothing but gives much. And I think that's true, isn't it? Just that little bit of genuine kindness makes a big difference.
It totally does. And there was while we talk about this, there was a study about this as well, professional management. And they were just talking about how in some aspects, in some culture, there is a sense of us, colleagues, teachers who are being managed, but in a professional way. And in some aspects, yes, but we're talking about crisis, and we're talking about someone, who is in a position where they're in burnout, they're disenfranchised, they have a crisis going on. This is not necessarily down to a professional aspect. It's down to an emotional aspect. It's down to, life just getting in the way in the worst possible manner. And I think that disingenuousness, if you're talking to someone and it is coming across as a tick in the boxes, that could even be just as detrimental as ignoring someone, because it's when you are in a state of crisis, you're fully aware of everyone and everything. And you're fully aware of, oh gosh, I'm thinking this, so everyone is going to be looking at me going, yeah, of course he's thinking that, when he's not. But you're internalizing everything. So when you get that conversation or you have that moment and you feel like it's just paint by number, it's even worse than being neglected.
I totally agree.
It's almost a sense of, why are you saying this? Like, you're sincere. You're not recognizing some of the things that I'm going through, and more importantly, you're patronizing and you're demeaning in that way. And it's mental illness is one of those ones where it does affect one in terms of the ego and the soul, because when you're in that situation, you don't want to be made to feel worse. And all people want in that situation is that glimmer of hope, that little bit of sunshine to say, look, it's really cloudy and it's thunderstorms over there and you're sailing into it. But actually, if you steer the course that way, there's a bit of sunshine there. Yeah. So
that's what they call it, isn't it? I learned that recently, that the opposite of a trigger is a glimmer. So, and it is, we look for those glimmers. And I think in education, we find them in really, really small things. Like they're tiny. And again, if you explain to someone outside of the career, they're just like, well, that doesn't sound like much. And you're like, that changed my day. It changed my day. That little things from students, that breakthrough that you've had with a student that you've been struggling with or something like that. I remember something years ago. This wasn't the last thing. This is just a tiny thing that happened, but I had a really tricky year 8 class years and years and years ago, and we were reading The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, which I appreciate has become quite controversial now. But they were such a difficult class, and this girl in the class, she gave me such a hard time. And one day she whirled on me in the doorway, and I was like, oh, what am I going to get? And she said, Miss, I hate reading. And I was like, oh, God. And she said, but I love it when we read books with you. And oh my gosh, my heart. And, that was probably 17 years ago now. And I remember that so strongly because I felt really emotional. As a result of it, it made such a difference to my day and to my career, because I thought, I've made a bit of a difference. And that's so nice. And if you explain that to someone who worked in, I don't know, banking or something like that, I'd be like, all right, what's the matter with you? I'm like, no, like, so good. Like, it lifted me. And I think about that moment sometimes when I've had a tricky class, and it is just, sometimes I think that one girl did more for me than some managers have in my time. And that's quite sad, isn't it? Really. And that's glimmers, the glimmers.
Yes, it is. But, it's a profound moment in your career, because you think about that now, 17 years later.
Yeah.
And in any way, if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking about how to support someone in that crisis, sometimes it just takes that little glimmer. And I've certainly had that in my career, where it's just all going wrong, and I'm like, everything I'm doing is just turning to dust. Yeah. And I'm like, I have no idea, like, what's going. Maybe I should just pack up and just go work in Morrison's, because that's probably all I'm worth. And then you have that little moment from a student, which basically almost serendipitous, where they remind you, hey, actually, you are making a difference.
Yeah.
You generally are. They're not going to say it directly, but they're going to have something there where they go, or even if you get a student come walking out of the classroom who normally just walks past you after the lesson, and they just go in and they go, thanks for the lesson, sir. And you go in and you go, oh, okay, that's new. Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you for coming.
It is. And if anyone's listening in terms of supporting, it's that I think it's important to remind ourselves and our colleagues that actually you've got a track record of being brilliant and having the work in, even if you've been working in the school for 3 months, there's going to be something where I'm sure as a mentor or senior leader is going to say, do you know what, you haven't been teaching long, but do you remember that lesson that you had in October about whatever it is? Do you remember how the kids were buzzing and they left the room laughing, high-fiving, they wrote on the board what they learned? Do you remember that? And I think it's important to think about the track record during those moments of crisis, and having someone signpost you going, I know you've had successes before. You can totally do it. You've had that here. Yeah. So let's zone in on that one. And then every time you're feeling glum, or every time I'm coming in, I'm going to remind you of those moments that you've had where you've gone in and you can absolutely do this. And those glimmers, I think, matter more so. You're right. And it's I don't hear it as a slight that that moment has had an impact on you more than it has on some of your managers, because the managers will probably say the same thing, because they say, look, it's all about your interaction and what you do with the kids, and if you're doing that, that's what matters. You've hit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think when you talk to people outside of the profession who say, oh, I couldn't do your job, I couldn't work with young people, and often they're the best bit of the job. Like, they're the bit that sustain you. They are the reason that you do it. I didn't become a teacher to talk to parents on the phone or fill in spreadsheets or, you know, answer countless emails. I went into teaching to work with young people. They are the best bit. You know, I laugh so much in a day just from the absolutely wild things that they say, or, you know, their takes on things, or, you know, I love that bit. That's the best bit. And so I think you do, again, because you're quite isolated a lot of the time and you don't see a lot of other adults, you do find a lot of your boosts in the young people. But I do think as a profession, we're terribly focused on the negatives. I don't think that's just necessarily a school culture thing. I think that's a profession culture thing. I think I do think we've moved out of it a little bit more. Now we're not doing so much of the observation thing. I think we have moved away. However, some of those judgy things, like Ofsted, like the whole Ofsted concept of standards, I think we do focus on the negative. You'll come out of a lesson and go, oh gosh, that happened. But sometimes you need a person in the back of the classroom to go, yeah, but so did that. And so did that. Like, that was really good. Did you see that person was doing that? They don't normally do any work, but today they did this. And we're so programmed to be self-critical and not focus on the positives. And I think that's cultural. That's something that we need to... I don't know how you address it really, because it's such a big culture shift, but it's something that we need to do. We've got one of our senior leaders, our assistant head in charge of teaching and learning. She has like at Easter we did pop-ins to each other's classrooms, and then we had little Easter eggs to fill in, just to kind of say what we loved about being in somebody else's lesson, to pin up on a board, and then we were given the Easter eggs afterwards. And I thought that was such a nice way to encourage us to be supportive of each other, to gather good practice, but we don't do it frequently enough. Like, that's got to be, if it's sporadic, it feels pressured, because you're like, oh my gosh, someone's judging me on this particular moment, and if my class is playing up, or this is the worst 10 minutes of my day and I can't believe you've been in here for this 10 minutes, that can feel really pressured. Whereas if it's a just general cultural thing where it's like, do you know what, on any given day, someone might pop in for 5 minutes, but do you know what? That's fine, because they might come back next week and they might see another 5 minutes, and we're all doing it to support each other. And if the kids know that it's part of that, and it's not like, why was so and so in here? Because they always ask you that, don't they? Why was that person in here? Like, are you being watched? Are you not good enough at your job? Like, they're always ready to gossip about it. Like, But if it was a cultural thing where it's just happening all the time, they wouldn't say anything about it. They wouldn't notice it. They'd know it was just part of teachers being kind to each other. And again, it's culture, because sometimes teachers are gossips as well. So
in the staff room, and we are. It's a way of letting off steam, and I listen to and sometimes take part, albeit not too toxically, but just you go in there and you look back and it's just letting off steam. It's just to kind of go. It's just a way just to go like that, and then next day it's forgotten, you know. So no.
And I would very much like to think, certainly, because a responsive coach for the first time this year, and I know that people are quite apprehensive about this idea of I'm part of a team, so it's not just me, of going in and being in people's lessons for no more than 15 minutes at a time. But the whole thing about responsive coaching, it's a really useful professional development. Actually, it's done completely supportively, it's done collaboratively rather than being, because what I hate about professional development is that it's something that's often done to you rather than with you. Responsive coaching is so much about being done with you, and I'm hoping that that culture will kind of sweep through as well, so people will know when I'm coming in to support you, I'm coming in to be a pair of eyes in the room that you're not, so I can see things because you're busy at the front of the classroom, you're doing what you need to do. I can be at the back and I can see things, and I'm not looking for negatives. I'm looking for your glimmers as well. Did you know that that person was doing that? You probably didn't notice because you were busy dealing with that over that point. But that student was engaged. They were enjoying what they were doing. They totally understood the concept. You know, you can do that, which I don't think we notice all the time.
Yeah, it's leads on to my last point, which we'll wrap up with. But just before I go, you would have noticed on the video that you have a link to John Catt's books. They're absolutely fantastic. Please use the code JCTR2425 for 20% off today. It's absolutely wonderful. In addition to that, we also got our Chalk and Talk podcast, and it's another wonderful podcast with Anna Stokey. She's passionate advocate for evidence-based math education for all students of all ages. On her podcast, listened to it many times. She talks about everything from effective teaching methods to how-to guides, teaching maths, evaluating, research show claims. It's absolutely brilliant. She brings in amazing top-notch guests, educators, researchers, policymakers. So it's definitely worth your time over the holidays. If you wanted to kind of get into some podcasts with that, she's absolutely the person to do. Chalk and Talk is available everywhere and anywhere where you get your podcasts. So this leads on to the last part of our discussion, and I think it's probably the do's and don'ts, and it's almost the wrap-up session of this one. And I'm glad you mentioned about the mentorship and the professional development. I think as a you've highlighted a do when you're working with colleagues and you're doing the professional development, you shouldn't do it to them, so to speak. You should do it with them.
Yeah.
And I like there's one colleague who I worked with in my previous school. He's only there for a year, but he was absolutely incredible. And he introduced a learning. He wanted to change learning observation to a learning discussion, and it ties in with your model. So his idea was that before someone sees your formal lesson observation, so to speak, you have a pre-chat beforehand, and you talk to whoever's observing about what you're doing and the context. So you have a quick 10 minutes go, right, this is what we've done, this is where we are now, and this is what I'd like to do. You can then have a conversation about, right, I'm anticipating X, Y, and Z is going to be a bit of an issue here, or we really should be on week 4 of the scheme, but we're actually on week 2 because they had a trip out to National Theatre, whatever it is. So we are a little bit behind. So I'm having a bit of trouble trying to get them up to speed. Therefore, you have that conversation which upholds integrity, and it's professional, and it shows actually the person that observing you, hey, look, I know this class. I do know them, rather than just reading on a piece of paper. Lesson plan. You do the lesson, and then afterwards you have a little feedback, and you go, right, so how did it all work? And then the person observing then has that context of where the lesson has come from, where it is now. So rather than making a snap judgment of, well, so-and-so were swinging from the light, and, you know, you had a kid there was kind of running in and out the classroom and banging the door. It takes that sting out of it, where they go, I get why they've done that, because on the plan, you've mentioned that, and we know that that child, that student, beg your pardon, has some difficult moments. And that goes a long way to building that trust. But it's cultural as well. The culture is set up to go, we're going to treat each other like professionals, but like people as well. We're also going to treat each other that we're experts. We've been employed at the school for a reason. So we know, rather than that Ofsted type pressure where it's snap judgment. They come in, they take a temperature check, and then they make a judgment based upon what you have now. You mentioned something to do with the culture and the problems with education as well. That's also a carry on from previous generations where it was very much cold, on about in this one. So I think in terms of the first would be, I agree with you, having that type of mentoring and professional development where it is you involve one another rather than, right, we've got a tick list here, so which one are we going to tick for this year? It just, again, we're talking about being disingenuous. That's the first thing on that one. So I would say for anyone out there, just make sure that when you're working with people, you are playing towards their strengths as educators, as professionals, but also as people as well. Do you have any other do's and don'ts, shall we say, more specifically to kind of building? So you've got the culture, but how do you build that trust when it comes to colleagues who are going through the tough times?
I think one of the things that we've talked about in this chat is about being genuine. I think like genuine inquiries, genuine relationships, not just going through the motions and doing things in a perfunctory way. I think that's really hard to do, but I think it's something, I think it comes from SLT being human as well, like showing a bit of your humanity, showing a little bit of your vulnerability yourself, and being clear that I'm not always perfect at this either. So I think do be human, do, admit your faults, and we all have them. None of us are perfect. So, and just being willing to do that, I think that's important.
Yeah. I would also say, you're right. Just kind of show your vulnerability and show your humanity in this way. I would say for people who are in crisis, I think it's really important. It's probably more important for those higher up to acknowledge it, but almost go, right, let's put aside the teacher. Let's think about this person and engage with them as a person. But all the while, creating a sense of you're fine, you're safe. The most important thing is we just want to make sure that you are supported. Not necessarily, well, your help is now affecting your students and they're affecting your work, your quality of work, and you've missed this and you haven't done this and you haven't done this, and so has made complaints. That's not what you do in a time of crisis, because again, it's just very depersonalized, and it just makes the other person feel absolutely rotten, and dare I say, perhaps to the point where they go, right, that's it, I'm out. So
I've seen that happen. I've heard some horror stories. I had one relatively recently where a colleague lost their parent, and they got an email after their second day of compassionate leave saying, you've reached your compassionate leave limit now. And I was just like, they told me this story and I was like, that's horrific. That's horrific. It's just like, and it was like, oh, it's an automatic email, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, do something about it. That's not acceptable. Yes, I understand you've got funding problems, but that doesn't come above somebody's mental health. You can't do that. I know we can't do everything, but that's a simple thing. And not sending an email like that, actually having a conversation with somebody instead of sending a stock email. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sad to also hear similar situations and stories about that. I think the most important thing for that is you can do something about it, and I think that what we're talking about today doesn't cost any money. It costs time, and it costs a bit of headspace. It might cost a little bit of going out and buying some nice coffee, because if it's anything like the schools, I've only worked in one school where the coffee is banging, only because we made sure an espresso machine, we're like, we need to make it good. So obviously Starfrom coffee is not the best, but even if you go out and buy some coffee and you go in and go, right, let's take some time off. Are you free on the Saturday? Are you free on this one? Let's meet up at the coffee shop. Let's meet up at the pub. Let's just have that chat. I think it goes
genuine.
Such a long way. It's such a long way, because we give so much of our time and energy during term times and even during holidays to make sure that we're the best teachers we can be.
Yeah.
We're the best support for parents. We basically hold the community in. We're a caring bunch. And I think that the big thing, if we can end on a lovely positive, is that there are enough people out there that do care. And, you know, no one goes into the teaching profession or the school going, right, I'm going to have the worst 6 periods of my life there. I'm just going to sit there, going to be on Vinted. I'm going to look at all the things that I'm going to buy. And then they're just going to be working on something I photocopied from a book I read in 1984. And they're just going to do that one. No, we go in and we're like, we're going to absolutely make a difference. And
We
I
care.
think we can. And if we go in there with a sense of we're all fighting the same battles, but if we're all going to be supporting one another, and if we're consistent in our care, and if we are canny with how we support one another, and we're consistent and we check in, where it be knock on the door, how's it going? You're right there. Do you want a coffee? I'm just going to make one. Or simple case of sending email. Sorry, massive to say, I haven't forgotten about you. Are we still okay to meet up? As long as it's that consistency and you show your humanity and you show that side. The biggest thing about taking people out of a crisis or during tough times, the biggest thing is that sense of love and care. And then over time, people can rebuild themselves. And it might be slow, it might take a while, with additional help, you know, that's available to us. But soon enough, people will get back to that position where we're like, okay, I think I'm going to be all right on this one. It'll be a bit shaky, but I think I'm going to be all right. So, yeah.
I totally agree.
Thank you. You have been a delight. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
So much here that I'm absorbing and making my mental notes on this one. I hope for those listening or those who are going to be listening later on after we publish it, I hope that it's going to be of benefit to you. Thank you so much again for being here today. And thank you for those listening. I will be back in a couple of weeks' time with a new guest. But until that time, please take care of yourselves and one another. And just remember, it was at the 2nd or the 1st of August. So September is far away. So don't even think about it. Just enjoy. There'll be a moment where we'll be clicking on going, oh God, I have to do some work. No, for now, we're going to enjoy that work and we're going to enjoy the time that we have with our families. Liz, thank you again. And I will see everyone in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.